Hey, we have to know the difference between elements, molecules, and compounds. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about today. And you can see my beautiful notes here. I'm just kidding, they're not that beautiful. But we got to know the difference of them so we can talk about them and so we can distinguish them and we can tell them apart. And then we can model them. Okay, so first things first, elements. Elements are super easy because they are found on the periodic table of elements. All right, so that means if it's on this periodic table, it is an element, which means that it is one of those building blocks, one of the things that everything in the world is made out of, these 118 elements. Now, what I want you to notice if you have a periodic table with you, a common misconception is that water is an element. And if you look on here, you will not find water on here anywhere. Okay, because water is made up of different things. It's not very simple. It takes some pieces, some ingredients of these elements. So water is not on here. Only thing that will be on here are elements, the most simple, the most basic things found in our universe. Okay, so they're always on the periodic table if it's considered an element. All right. Now, we call these the building blocks. Okay, we call them the building blocks of all things. And I like to think of it like Legos. Okay, you can have a whole tub full of different types of Legos and you can build tons of stuff out of it. So if I gave 3 kids the same 100 pieces of Legos, okay, I can almost guarantee you that you wouldn't build the same the same things. Everyone would build different things. So these elements, we can stick them together to build everything else, but these are the most basic thing. Okay, so when we say element, that means they just have one atom. All right, so like hydrogen, it's just one. Okay, or you could give me another one, and we're going to go with zinc. Okay, it's just one thing. All right, one element from the periodic table. All right, now the next thing I like to remember is that all elements are pure substances because I can't get any more simple than that. That's just what they are. Okay, they're not made out of other stuff. It's actually pretty cool because since the beginning of time, these elements have been on the earth and we just recycle them and use them in different ways. And so nothing creates them. They've just always been around. Okay, they're pure. And when I think of the word pure, I think of like pure gold. Okay, and actually gold is one of your elements on your periodic table. So when you buy something that is pure gold, you want to make sure that it doesn't have anything else in it. It's just that one thing. Okay, so elements are pure substances. Okay, now elements, I told you that they're building blocks of all things, so they can make these other things called molecules. All right, and molecules are pretty easy. They're when 2 or more atoms chemically combine or they get stuck together. So let me give you an example here. Okay, 2 or more, I have more here, and they're chemically combined, they're stuck together. So this is considered a molecule. All right, remember atoms or elements only have one. If it has more than one, we call it a molecule. All right, now this is where it gets a little bit tricky because they can be the same type of element. So I could have a helium and a helium stuck together. Okay, this would be considered a molecule, or they can be different. All we know when we say molecule is that you got stuff stuck together, 2 or more of them. So it can look like this, or they can be different, and you could have, I probably should have drawn that a little bit bigger, sorry guys, NaCl. They are different. Both of these, okay, are considered molecules because you have more than one thing stuck together. All right. So I'm going to show you a few different examples here. If it only has one capital letter like this, where it says N with the number 2, all right, this number 2 tells me how many that we have of this thing right here. Okay, so this one would look like this right here, two ends stuck together. Okay, it's a molecule. And then it kind of cut off on down here on my sorry. It also can have two different types of elements. Okay, and the example they were going to give you was NaCl. NaCl, both of these are considered a molecule because it's just more than one thing stuck together. So I've got stuff stuck together, stuck together, stuck together, stuck together. That means these are molecules. Please remember that it can have more. All right, it can't have more than two. All right, it just has to have at least two. So like if I had H2O, this is still considered a molecule because it's got more than one thing. It's got different stuff stuck together or chemically combined. All right, and then finally, we get a little bit crazier. Okay, these two are pretty simple because everything is going to either be an element or a molecule. But somewhere down the line, they realized that they needed a better way to describe things. And so some molecules can also be considered a compound. Okay, and I call this a fancy molecule. It's fancy. It's a little bit more complicated than our just regular molecules. It's nice and fancy, and this would be a compound. All right, again, because it's still a molecule, because it says molecule here, I know that it has to have at least two or more atoms. All right, it's got to have at least two or more that are chemically combined. But in this case, they must be different types of elements. Okay, they have to be different. Here they didn't. They could be the same or they could be different. But here they're fancier. They've got to be the different ones. Okay, so when you're looking at that chemical formula, it's got to have two or more capital letters in the formula. So check this out. Here's my example. Down here, I have a capital H and a capital O. All right, this tells me I have two different elements. In this case, I have hydrogens and I have oxygens. They're all stuck together. All right, so it would look like this. And it's just water. But because it's fancy, I'm going to call it a compound. All right, it's both a molecule because it has more than one. But because it's fancy, we also call it a compound. Now, I'm going to give you a not example, okay? N2 is not a compound. If I were to draw this, it tells me that I have two of the ends, so it would look like this. All right, and this is a molecule. I'm totally with you because I got two things stuck together, so it fits here. It has two or more, but are they different types? Are they different types here? No. So this is not a molecule because they are not different. Okay, they don't have different elements in them, so this is not a compound. So remember, all things are either an element or a molecule. Okay, all right, and then we just got to decide if it's fancy enough to be called a compound too or not. All right, we're going to practice this on the next video. Good luck.